When people query around the use of mediation, one of the key questions that arises is what happens if the mediation doesn't work? And I want to start answering that question by reminding us that mediation is very much a voluntary process. It is very much owned by the parties that are involved in the process, and it is a very safe space within which those parties can engage with each other. The consequence is sometimes that it is more difficult to implement a mediation arrangement than it is to come to that mediation arrangement. And there are about 4 areas that we find are the key places where mediation might be seen not to have achieved the goals that were set out. And the first of those is the obvious one, where during the course of a mediation, one or a number of the parties feel that they can't proceed, that they are feeling threatened by the process itself, and they have the right and the obligation under those circumstances to withdraw. The second area is the issue of expedience. When a party reaches agreement in a process, but merely to get the process over with. And of course, once they walk out of that process, they immediately regret the fact that they've reached that agreement. And by definition, because of the nature of mediation, because it is a human process, not a legal process, we are not bound by those agreements in the same manner that a contract might bind you to a way forward. It is a psychological contract more than a legal one. Often, when parties return to the real world, they look back on what they've agreed, or one of the parties looks back on what they've agreed and then realizes, I was in a place that I was making arrangements that I could not honestly uphold. And in that context, they then also feel that they need to back out of the agreement. And the final one is obviously the area where in implementation, both parties over a period of time begin to falter, begin to fall, and are unable to sustain that arrangement. In those 4 zones, we then find that maybe the mediation did not achieve the goal that was set out at the beginning of the process. What happens then? Well, we must remind ourselves that mediation is voluntary, it is owned by the parties, and it is completely non-prejudicial. In other words, if the mediation has not achieved the goals, then we return to whatever the organizational policy platforms provide for us. I think maybe it's important, though, to appreciate that 99.9% of the time, the very fact of engaging in the mediation process is in itself part of the solution, where the parties begin to realize that there's more to it than only what they see. So we are very hesitant when it comes to saying that a mediation has not worked. Mediation always works in one way or the other.